The moment Marco steps into our lavish New York City apartment, I know I'm playing with fire. But hell, the thrill? Unmatched. Alex is off on one of his business trips, probably thinking I'm home knitting or something. Little does he know, I've got Marco here, making my heart race in ways it hasn't in years. After Marco leaves, I'm on my phone like a CIA agent, deleting texts, calls, any trace of our little rendezvous. I'm confident I've covered our tracks perfectly. Alex, with his head always buried in work, wouldn't notice a thing. Or so I thought. Alex surprises me, coming back early, arms laden with gifts and this big plan for a surprise date night. It's like something out of a cheesy romance movie. He's all affection and smiles, and for a moment, I feel a pang of guilt. But it's fleeting. I'm too deep in this game now. During our date, my phone lights up with a message from Marco. I dismiss it with a nervous laugh, but I catch Alex's eyes on me, a shadow of doubt flickering across his face. He says nothing, though. Alex, the ever-silent observer. It's in this moment I realize he might be onto us. But then he smiles, and I convince myself it's just my paranoia talking. A few days later, things start to feel off. Alex's behavior shifts, he's more withdrawn, pensive. I overhear him on the phone, talking about unusual behavior, and requesting comprehensive surveillance. My heart drops. He's not just onto us, he steps ahead. The day he confronts me, it's with cold, hard evidence. Photos of Marco and me, timestamps, locations, the works. He lays them out in his study, and I watch as his heart breaks in silence. Mine does too, but for different reasons. I've been caught, and the game's up. Alex's next move? Consulting a divorce attorney. He's planning meticulously, thinking about his next steps with a precision I hadn't expected from him. It's like he's a different person, one who's not going to let me off easy. I realize then that I've underestimated him, and the gravity of my actions begins to sink in. This isn't just a fling gone wrong. It's the unraveling of our lives together, and for the first time, I'm scared of what's to come. The second Marco suggests a weekend getaway, my heart leaps. Just the break we need, I think, ignoring the nagging voice in my head reminding me of the web of lies I'm weaving. Telling Alex I'm off to help a friend in crisis. I see a flicker of something in his eyes. Pain? Suspicion? He masks it quickly, nodding and offering a week, take care. His facade almost has me fooled, but there's a chill in his goodbye that I've never felt before. As I'm whisked away to a secluded beachside retreat with Marco, living in a bubble of bliss and denial, Alex is back in our New York City apartment, diving into a world I've underestimated. He's not just sitting around, he's on a mission. Accessing our financial records, he meticulously documents every asset, every penny in our name. It's like he's preparing for war, and here I am, unarmed and unaware. By the time he starts shifting our assets, moving money to accounts I didn't even know existed, I'm too caught up in my weekend of deceit to notice the ground falling away beneath me. Alex, the man I married, the man I thought would be forever tied to my side, is entangling our lives with a precision that's both terrifying and impressive. Returning home, the air feels different. Alex is there, his presence like a ghost of the husband I knew. He's quiet, too quiet, and while I tell myself he's just tired, deep down, I know something's off. His usual warmth is replaced by a cold distance, and for the first time, I start to question if my actions are catching up to me. But then, life seems to resume its normal pace, or so I think. I continue my affair with Marco, emboldened by what I perceive as Alex's ignorance. He's none the wiser, I foolishly reassure myself, not knowing that Alex has transformed into a silent architect of my downfall. The report from the private investigator lands in Alex's hands, a detailed account of my betrayal. He reads it, each word a hammer blow to the remnants of our marriage. Yet, he stores it away with a calmness that belies the storm brewing within. He's documenting everything, building a case against me with a meticulousness that would have once been reserved for our future plans, now used to orchestrate my demise. And there I am, blissfully ignorant of the avalanche I've set in motion, continuing my dance on the edge of a volcano. My affair with Marco isn't just a secret fling anymore, it's the catalyst for my unraveling, a testament to my arrogance. Thinking I'm untouchable, I fail to see the walls closing in, the ground shifting beneath my feet. Alex, the man I believed would always be mine, is plotting a future where I have no place, and I'm too caught up in my own deceit to see the end coming. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you do, please take a moment to hit that like button, it really helps me out and lets me know you appreciate the content. Also, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribing is a great way to stay updated with all the latest videos and to be part of our growing community. It's quick, it's free, and it ensures you won't miss out on any upcoming content. So go ahead, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Your support means a lot and keeps this channel going. Thanks for watching. Just when I think things are getting back to some twisted version of normal, Alex drops a bombshell, not the explosive kind, but the sneaky, slow-burning fuse type. He's chatting with a real estate agent, all casual like he's planning a weekend barbecue, not discussing selling our lush New York City apartment. Just exploring options for a fresh start, he says, his voice a little too nonchalant. My stomach knots, a fresh start from what? Then, like a scene from a detective movie, I stumble upon a brochure for swanky new apartments on the kitchen counter. My mind races, is he planning to leave me? But Alex, ever the smooth talker, brushes off my panic with a wave of his hand. It's just for a potential investment, he assures me, and I want to believe him so badly that I do. My suspicions are eased, but there's this tiny voice in the back of my head whispering, liar. Fast forward a few weeks, and Alex is moving stuff out of our place. Not blatantly, but I notice a missing book here, a pair of shoes there. He's like a ghost, slowly fading from our home. He's secured a new pad, just for himself, planning his great escape. I catch the address one day, scribbled on a piece of paper that slips from his pocket. My heart sinks, it's real, he's leaving. At a dinner party we host, Alex is Mr. Perfect husband on the surface, but there's this edge to him, watching me like a hawk. I can feel his eyes on me every time I'd laughed too loud or too long with someone. It's unnerving. Then, damn it, Marco decides that's the perfect time to text me. My phone lights up, and I laugh it off, but Alex's silence is louder than any confrontation. He saw, he knows. The next thing I know, Alex's attorney is drafting divorce papers. The terms? Let's just say they don't favor me. At all. It's like he's aiming for a clean sweep, taking everything we've built together because of my infidelity and financial deceit. It hits me then, he's not playing around. He's out for blood. Feeling backed into a corner but still clinging to a shred of invincibility, I decide it's time to come clean. He'll understand. I tell myself, he loves me too much to let this ruin us. So, I confess, laying it all out there, framing my affair as a mistake, a blip in our perfect life. I expect anger, tears, maybe a dramatic showdown. Instead, Alex just listens, quiet as the grave. When he finally speaks, his voice is calm, but there's a chill to it that freezes my blood. He's not the forgiving type, not anymore. I've underestimated him, and as he talks, outlining the consequences of my actions, I realize the depth of my folly. Alex, the man I thought I knew, the man I believed would stand by me through thick and thin, is gone. In his place is a stranger, calculating and cold, ready to cut me out of his life completely. And there's nothing I can do but watch the life I knew crumble to dust. The moment Alex slides those divorce papers across the kitchen table, it's like my whole world tilts on its axis. I've known for months, he says, and the way he looks at me, I can tell he's not the man I married anymore. He's a stranger, cold and calculating. The papers are crisp, formal, a stark contrast to the messy, emotional turmoil churning inside me. I'm shocked, not just by the revelation but by the depth of my own naivety. How did I not see this coming? The divorce proceedings kick off like a meticulously planned military operation, with Alex at the helm, steering the ship directly into my worst nightmares. He's armed to the teeth with evidence of my infidelity and financial trickery. I try to fight back, scrabbling to rally support from our friends and family, but Alex's narrative is watertight. One by one, the people I thought I could count on drift away, their eyes filled with something between pity and disdain. In court, my lawyer looks like he's fighting a losing battle against a tsunami. Alex's evidence is overwhelming, and with each piece presented, I can feel the ground slipping away beneath me. It's not just a legal defeat, it's personal. Alex has turned my mistakes into an arsenal, and he's using it to destroy me. When the judge finally rules in Alex's favor, citing my infidelity and financial misconduct, it's not just a blow, it's a wrecking ball to my life. I'm left with next to nothing, stripped of the assets we'd built together, the apartment, and a significant portion of our investments. It's like I'm being erased from my own life, left with the scraps of what used to be a lavish existence. The fallout is immediate and brutal. My social circle evaporates overnight. Friends I'd laughed with, shared secrets with, turn their backs on me, siding with Alex. The evidence he'd compiled paints me as the villain in our story, and they buy it without question. I'm isolated, a social pariah, navigating the wreckage of my life alone. In a last-ditch attempt to find some semblance of comfort, I reach out to Marco, but even he's slipped through my fingers. He's moved on, dismissing our affair as nothing more than a temporary diversion. The realization hits me like a punch to the gut. I was just a game to him, a way to pass the time. So here I am, standing amidst the ruins of my life, a life I thought I controlled. Every bridge burned, every ally turned foe. The weight of my choices, my arrogance, my mistakes, crashes down on me with a finality that leaves me breathless. I'm alone, truly alone, for the first time in my life, and the silence is deafening. Gone are the days of sipping champagne on a rooftop overlooking the city. Now, it's more about counting coins to make rent in a cramped, mold-scented apartment that's a far cry from the luxury I was used to. Every morning, I wake up to the reality of my new life, the stark contrast a bitter pill to swallow. The glamour? A distant memory. While I'm scrimping and saving, Alex is out there living his best life. I see his face plastered across local magazines, tagged in social media posts from the hottest events in town. New York's most eligible bachelor, they call him. It stings, knowing he's thriving while I'm barely surviving. Trying to claw my way back up, I hit the job market hard. But it seems my reputation has beaten me to it. Every interview ends with that same, pitying look. My professional network, once a source of pride, is now a reminder of bridges burned. The whispers of my downfall have spread far and wide, closing doors I didn't even know I needed. In a moment of desperation, I confront Alex at a charity gala, hoping for some semblance of peace, a truce. I approach him, heart pounding, only to be met with a wall of ice. "You made your choices, Elena," he says, his voice devoid of any warmth. The finality in his tone cuts deeper than any legal document ever could. As if the rejection wasn't enough, the rumors about me spiral out of control. Each whisper, each pointed look, is a nail in the coffin of my social standing. The story of my infidelity and the spectacle of our divorce have become the stuff of local gossip, a cautionary tale of what not to do. And then, the bills start piling up. Notices for unpaid debts, loans I'd shrugged off, assuming Alex would handle them like he always did. The reality of my financial negligence hits me like a truck. I'm drowning in a sea of red, reminders of my careless past arriving in every mail drop. This chapter of my life is a far cry from the fairy tale I once lived. It's a daily struggle, a fight to rebuild from the ashes of my own making. The luxury, the parties, the carefree laughter have gone, replaced by the harsh reality of consequences. As I navigate this new existence, each day brings its own challenges, a constant battle to prove I'm more than my mistakes, even if the world seems determined to define me by them. As I sift through the remnants of a life once adorned with the sparkle of luxury, my hands linger on the cold metal and stones of my jewelry, the silky fabric of designer dresses I once wore with pride. Each piece, a memory of a past that feels like someone else's story. Selling them feels like stripping away layers of my old self, but desperation doesn't afford the luxury of sentimentality. The cash they bring in is a temporary lifeline, staving off the relentless tide of debts that threaten to engulf me. In the silence of my barren apartment, the weight of my choices settles in. There's no one to confide in, no sympathetic ear to hear my regrets. My reflections are a solitary affair, the echo of my thoughts a stark reminder of the isolation my actions have wrought. It's in these moments, surrounded by the ghosts of my past, that the full magnitude of my fall from grace hits hardest. The news of Alex's engagement is a jolt out of nowhere, a sharp sting amidst the dull ache of my new reality. He's moving on, building a future with someone respected and successful, someone not marred by scandal and poor choices. The knowledge adds a bitter layer to my already substantial pile of losses, a reminder of what I've thrown away. Attempts to reconnect with old friends prove futile. Doors that were once open to me are now closed, both literally and metaphorically. Rejection, or worse, the polite indifference I encounter, is a clear message. I am no longer part of their world. The realization that I am truly alone, without even the comfort of familiar faces, is a sobering one. The job I managed to secure is a stark departure from my previous life. Gone are the days of leisurely lunches and spontaneous shopping sprees. Now, my days are measured in the relentless routine of minimum wage labor, each day a stark reminder of the consequences of my actions. The work is mundane, the pay barely enough to cover the basics, but it's all I have. Seeing Alex and his fiancée at a restaurant one evening crystallizes my new reality. They are wrapped up in each other, a bubble of happiness I once thought would always include me. Their laughter, the way they lean into each other, it's a visual representation of my solitude. I'm an outsider looking in on a life I once took for granted, now irrevocably out of reach. This chapter of my life is one of hard lessons and harsh truths. The glittering facade of my previous existence has been stripped away, leaving me to face the consequences of my choices head-on. Each day is a struggle, a battle to find some semblance of peace with the person I've become. The journey is lonely, the path uncertain, but it's the one I must walk, step by weary step. Diving back into the dating scene felt like stepping onto a battlefield with no armor. Each attempt to connect, a stark reminder of the shadow my past casts over my present. Conversations that start with promise quickly turn sour, the curiosity in their eyes turning to judgment when my history comes to light. It's like I'm branded, marked by my mistakes, unable to escape the stigma of a scandal that clings to me like a second skin. Trying to forge new friendships feels just as futile. The social circles I once navigated with ease now seem impenetrable, my advances met with polite smiles that never reach weary eyes. It's clear they've heard the stories, formed their opinions, and there's no place for me among them. The loneliness is a constant companion, a shadow that follows me even in crowded rooms. Then, one day, an invitation arrives. Alex's wedding. My heart stops. It's clearly a mistake, a cruel twist of fate that has it landing in my mailbox. Holding it, I'm overwhelmed by a flood of memories, each one a reminder of the life we planned together, now just out of reach. The weight of my decisions, my betrayal, presses down on me, a tangible reminder of everything I've lost. On the day of the wedding, curiosity gets the better of me. I find myself walking past the venue, just a glimpse, I tell myself. The sight of the celebration, the sound of laughter and music drifting out, is a vivid contrast to the silence of my existence. I see him, Alex, happy and in love, a stark reminder of the void within me. I'm an outsider, looking in on a world that's no longer mine. In the aftermath, I throw myself into self-improvement, enrolling in classes and workshops. It's an attempt to start anew, to build something from the ashes of my former life. But each step forward is a struggle, my past a constant barrier to progress. The journey of reinvention is slow, marred by setbacks and reminders of the person I used to be, the choices I made. When images of Alex's honeymoon flood social media, it's like a punch to the gut. The happiness radiating from those pictures is a world away from the grim reality of my daily life. They're exploring exotic locales, basking in their love for each other, while I'm here, fighting for every inch of ground in a battle to redefine myself. Sitting in my modest apartment, the realization of what I've lost fully dawns on me. It's not just Alex, not just the material comforts and social standing. I've lost myself, the person I thought I was, the life I thought I'd have. Acknowledging that my downfall was of my own making doesn't bring relief. There's no solace in this understanding, only the bitter taste of regret. My choices have led me here, to this moment of introspection, and the path ahead is unclear, shrouded in the consequences of a past I can't undo. The journey forward is mine alone to make, a daunting prospect filled with uncertainty, but perhaps, in this solitude, there's a chance to find redemption, to rebuild not just my life, but I glance at my husband across the breakfast table, his brow furrowed over the newspaper. A familiar wave of boredom washes over me. It's wrong, I know it is. He's a good man, a steady rock, and this dull ache of discontent is solely my own failing. My phone buzzes. It's a flirty text from a coworker. A smile tugs at my lips that's been absent around my husband for far too long. Immediately, I feel the familiar prickle of guilt. This banter, it's fun, but I see the danger in it, the way it casts my marriage in an even more unflattering light. The thrill of the text lingers in the office. My cubicle feels less drab, the hours tick by faster than usual. It's a relief, however temporary, from the heaviness settling into the corners of my life. Yet, with the ease comes a fresh wave of shame. Later, my husband asks about my day. I offer a vague summary, my mind still replaying witty banter with my coworker. I force myself to sound enthusiastic about mundane details, acutely aware of the chasm growing between us. That chasm scares me, I never wanted this. In bed, I turn away from my husband's warmth, the glow of my phone screen a comforting distraction instead. It's not the warmth I crave, it's the excitement, the thrill that's been absent for too long. This can't be good, can it? Conversations with the coworker stretch into late evenings, a secret world where I feel vibrant and seen. The flattery is intoxicating, and I try to ignore the voice growing louder in the back of my head. The voice that says, this could get messy. Guilt pricks, and this time, not so faintly. After all, it's just harmless flirting, a spark to brighten the monotony. Or is it something more? The question lingers, a buzzing mosquito I try in vain to swat away. I meet my coworker for lunch, rationalizing it as work-related. His compliments feel intoxicating after years of feeling taken for granted. The thrill of his attention chases away the nagging voice of caution. A little ego boost, that's all this is, I tell myself. But a knot of unease already tightens in my stomach. We start having drinks after work, laughter flowing easier than it does with my husband. It's wrong, isn't it? To crave conversation with someone else the way I should with my own partner? And yet, I push the nagging thoughts aside. His handbrush is mine during a crowded happy hour. The touch sends a shiver down my spine that I've long forgotten. My breath catches, a sharp contrast to the comfortable numbness I've become accustomed to at home. I linger in the parking lot after work, anticipating the next text, the next shared joke, the next rush. Instead of dread, there's excitement thrumming beneath my skin, mixed with a potent terror at what that means. This isn't just about a neglected marriage, there's something darker blooming inside me. One night, there's a kiss, heated, unexpected, wrong. I rush home, heart pounding with a mix of exhilaration and shame. The exhilaration wins. The rush of it all masks the terror, for now. My husband greets me, oblivious. It's simpler to keep smiling than to confront the abyss that's opened within me. Denial is easier than destroying the life we've built. Lying beside him, I no longer pretend it's just messages. I'm crossing a line I never imagined I would. The thrill is tinged with nausea, and the guilt I once rationalized away now burns hot in my chest. This isn't the escape I sought, it's a trap of my own making. Excuses swirl in my head. I'm unhappy, my husband's distant. It's justification that feels flimsy even to myself. The truth is, I'd let the embers of our marriage cool out of sheer neglect. Responsibility for that lies with me, but swallowing such a bitter truth is near impossible. The affair burns with an intensity one haven't felt in years, making my ordinary life seem unbearably dull. This is where it gets truly dangerous. It's not just the thrill, it's the relief. Relief from confronting the ways of failed my husband, and more importantly, myself. My lies feel like pebbles at first, then boulders. Late meetings, work trips, a revived interest in an old hobby. Each fabrication chips away at the woman I thought I was. Yet, I keep building the facade. The ease with which the words come frightens me, but I push the fear down. This is temporary, I tell myself. I'll end it, soon. The lie tastes like acid, but I cling to it like a lifeline. My husband notices a change, a spark in my eye, a new dress. I hold his gaze, the guilt burning hotter. There's a flicker of hope in his expression, and that hope is the sharpest weapon of all. He deserves better than this half-hearted version of me. Suspicion flickers across his face, and I deflect. A tiny crack forms in the illusion of our normal life. Did I imagine it, or was the question in his eyes real? Maybe this charade can't last much longer, a prospect that both terrifies and exhilarates me. My resolve wavers, but desire overpowers it. I'm addicted to the stolen moments, the feeling of being desired. It's validation tainted with poison, and I swallow it greedily. This can't be my forever, but I've lost the map leading me out of the labyrinth I've built. I begin to live a double life, meticulous in my lies, reckless in my affair. Compartmentalization becomes my superpower, phone calls carefully timed, excuses crafted with a practiced ease that makes me sick. My husband and my lover inhabit separate worlds in my mind. One is stability, the other a dangerous escape. The lines between the two become blurry, the escape leaching color from the reality I'd once taken for granted. Nights are a blur of stolen text exchanges and the lingering scent of another man on my skin. Sleep evades me, every creak of the house sounds like accusation, every rustle sounds like discovery. I tell myself I'm in control, but the control is an illusion. I'm hurtling down a path I can't seem to turn away from. The fear fuels me, the possibility of losing everything, the life I built, the man who trusts me, my own distorted reflection, becomes an aphrodisiac. I convince myself that my husband won't ever know. Arrogance replaces fear, I believe, foolishly, in my own invincibility. After all, I'm getting so good at the deception. How can I possibly fail? Close calls make my heart race. Every forgotten text is a potential bomb waiting to detonate. Each time I wriggle free, the relief is sharp, followed by a plunge deeper into the madness. My survival instincts should be screaming, yet they're silent. I start to see danger everywhere, but instead of stopping, the risk becomes part of the thrill. I'm playing a game with consequences I can't fully fathom. Yet, the stakes are what make it all so intoxicating. My smiles feel brittle, laughter with my husband is forced, carrying an echo of betrayal. There's a hollowness behind my eyes that he can't quite pinpoint, but that doesn't stop the tendrils of his worry. I hate myself for that worry, it's gasoline on the fire of my guilt. Every shared moment, every "I love you," becomes a shard of broken glass lodged in my throat. Whispering those words, once a sincere pledge, feels like the cruelest of jokes. I'm playing a role, and with each loving gesture, I sink deeper into the quicksand of my own deceit. Sleep evades me, I alternate between insomnia and nightmares of discovery and loss. Waking up is the worst. The relief of it being a dream fades, replaced by the crushing reality of my choices. I'm exhausted, my very bones ache with the effort of keeping up the charade. Small things set me off. I snap at my husband, projecting my own guilt as resentment towards him. His bewilderment is yet another form of torture. He didn't deserve this version of me, the bitter shell of the woman he married. I become a stranger in my own skin, haunted by the person I have become. Sometimes I look in the mirror and don't recognize the desperate, hungry eyes staring back. My reflection is a grotesque mockery of the person I thought I was, the person I wanted to be. I start imagining escape routes, scenarios where this could all just disappear. An overseas job offer, an accident that conveniently erases my memory of the affair. The fantasies are as pathetic as they are dangerous. The truth is, there's no disappearing from this. Yet, I choose none of them. I'm paralyzed, terrified of exposure, and still desperately clinging to the affair. It's a sickness. I know, with agonizing clarity, that I'm the architect of my own destruction. Yet, I keep building the tower, even as the foundation crumbles beneath my feet. I notice my husband watching me more closely, a flicker of doubt in his eyes that I've never seen before. It chills me to the bone. Is the facade finally starting to crack? The foundation is unstable. One strong tremor could send everything crumbling. A quiet distance stretches between us. We exist in the same spaces, but it's a hollow performance. Meals are eaten in stilted conversation, the television filling the void of things left unsaid. Even pretending is a task I no longer have the strength for. The thrill of the affair is tainted with dread. One careless mistake could bring it all crashing down. I've become my own worst enemy, jumpy at every innocuous text, suspicious of every glance my husband gives my phone. My paranoia isn't without cause. I'm playing with fire, and it's only a matter of time before I get burned. My lover starts pushing for more time, more commitment, an ultimatum I'm not prepared to give. He wants me to leave my husband, to start a new life. The absurdity of it finally breaks through the fog. What life, one built on lies, where I would be everything I've come to despise. Suddenly, the affair feels claustrophobic, the price of the lie looming larger than the temporary high. It was never the solution to my discontent, merely a more insidious problem dressed up as freedom. Panic sets in. This was never how it was supposed to go. I never meant to hurt anyone, certainly not myself. The desperation in that thought is a cold fist around my heart. Everything is crashing inwards, a slow-motion train wreck that I set in motion. Late one night, a text from my lover goes unanswered. For the first time, I let the silence stretch out. It's a tiny act of rebellion, a single brick pulled from the tower of my self-destruction. It doesn't feel like victory, more like the first breath taken after being submerged too long. I reach out to my husband, a clumsy attempt to bridge the space I've created between us. Words spill out. Apologies tinged with self-preservation, half-truths riddled with shame. His expression is a mask I can't decipher. His guarded warmth feels like a lifeline and a condemnation at the same time. He's reaching back, hesitant but willing to explore a path towards healing. Shame floods me anew. He deserves so much better than this broken version of me. I become hyper-focused on fixing things. Desperate gestures meant to undo the damage. Grand displays of affection and meticulous caretaking become my offerings. It's a pathetic attempt at penance, and I suspect he sees right through it. My husband is confused but tentatively hopeful. Seeing his willingness to give this another chance pierces the armor I've built. The relief is a balm, but the guilt remains a constant, throbbing ache. Did I deserve this second chance? The affair is still a pull, but the desire to end it, to reclaim some shred of integrity, grows stronger. It's a battle waged within myself, a war between the siren call of self-destruction and the faintest hope for redemption. My lover becomes resentful, sensing my withdrawal. His texts turn accusatory, then desperate. Each unanswered message is a hammer blow chipping away at my resolve. He paints me as the villain, and he's not entirely wrong. I block his number, a wave of relief and terror washing over me. It's done, but nothing feels resolved. I'm caught adrift, the wreckage of the affair still clinging to me. Worse still, my marriage is in shambles, built on a new foundation of deceit. The lie strangles me. I cannot build a future on this poisoned foundation. My attempts at repair were merely sandcastles against the relentless tide of my deception. The truth claws its way out, desperate and inevitable. One evening, I sit my husband down, words tumbling out in a rush I can't control. The confession is a brutal thing, a self-inflicted detonation. Each detail strips away the facade I so painstakingly crafted, revealing the monster beneath. The shock and pain in his eyes are a physical blow. Every word lands like a hammer. It mirrors the agony I feel internally, the destruction of the US we'd built. The silence stretches after I finish, agonizing and thick. He stares at me, a stranger. I don't blame him. In this moment, I am unrecognizable even to myself. The woman he married is gone, replaced by a hollow shell inhabited by betrayal. His questions are brutal, every detail peeling back another layer of self-deception. They're not asked out of cruelty, but from a desperate need to understand how I, could have happened. No excuses I offer feel sufficient. The truth is ugly and undeniable. Explanations wither in the face of the damage I've caused. I am the architect of his pain, and there is no absolution I can offer, none I truly deserve. My apology feels empty, even to my own ears. I've broken something fundamental, perhaps irreparable. His devastation shatters what remained of my pride. Remorse lances me, yet it feels too little, far too late. An endless night of ragged sobs and his cold silence. The house feels suffocating, each shared item. The chipped coffee mug, the worn throw on the sofa, becomes a mocking reminder of everything I've destroyed. Sleep is an elusive luxury. In the morning, his eyes are like stone. He speaks in clipped sentences, making practical arrangements. His composure is a stark contrast to my disintegration. There's an efficiency to his pain. The logistics of separating a life we spent years entwining. Numbness sets in. This isn't how it was supposed to end, but what other ending was possible? The question is rhetorical. I know, without a shadow of a doubt, that there was never another path in the aftermath of my choices. Days become a blur of logistics. His lawyer, packing boxes, the chilling finality of it all. I am a spectator to my own downfall, signing papers that end a marriage I wasn't worthy of. Each finalized detail a fresh blow to my already shattered spirit. The whispers start, friends choose sides, some disappearing altogether. Judgment hangs heavy in the air. The stares, both of pity and gleeful disdain, flay open the wounds of my self-inflicted humiliation. He leaves. The door closing behind him feels like a death knell. Our home, once a sanctuary, is now a mausoleum of dead dreams. I thought I knew loneliness, but this is a desolate wasteland within my own skin. Alone in the shell of our former life, the stark realization hits. I cheated, thinking he'd always love me, but he walked out and never looked back. It is the epitaph I deserve, a cold truth to echo in the hollow spaces of my heart for the rest of my days. Shame has burrowed deep within me, a relentless parasite feeding on my soul. I dissect the past with a morbid fascination, each remembered moment a shard of glass cutting into the open wound of, what if? The question echoes unanswered, a haunting reminder that the past is as unchangeable as death itself. Regret is a suffocating weight, a physical ache residing just below my ribs. The fantasy of fixing what I've destroyed is a poisonous indulgence. There is no undo button, no balm powerful enough to heal the scars I've carved into another person's heart. Self-loathing has become my native language. Every morning, my reflection is a monstrous stranger sneering back at my disgust. The worst part is the clarity. I wasn't misled or manipulated, I wasn't blindsided by some grand tragedy. I was the architect of my own ruin, fueled by a cocktail of selfishness and willful ignorance. Solitude is a suffocating cell, yet venturing out into the world feels like walking a gauntlet. Eyes that were once friendly now brim with accusation, or worse, with pity. I see my fall from grace mirrored back at me, and the shame burns anew. Sleep is a cruel trick. My dreams are infested with nightmares where our roles are reversed. I become him, trapped in his pain, his devastation. I wake in clammy sheets, my own betrayal a bitter taste I cannot wash away. Anger flares in brief, desperate bursts. I lash out at him in my mind, at my lover whose promises were as hollow as my own heart, but most of all, at myself. I am my own primary target, my fury a pathetic mirror of my self-destruction. Slowly, the sharp edges of despair begin to soften. The clamor within me quiets, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. I'm left with an aching hollowness, the ruins of who I used to be. Staring at my shattered reflection, I see only a stranger. This is my new reality, a desolate wasteland born of my own doing. Yet, a strange thing persists, a flicker of something that refuses to be completely extinguished. Foolish as it seems, hope, or perhaps sheer stubbornness, claws for purchase amidst the ruins. Maybe, far down the line, redemption is possible. Not the forgiveness I crave but don't deserve, but the possibility of rebuilding into something less monstrous. It's a fragile ember, but it's all I— Who's that? Daniel's voice cut through the tense silence. Didn't even look up. Just a work thing, I blurted, voice a little too high, too fast. Idiot. Work this late? His brow furrowed, a flicker of suspicion crossing his eyes for a brief, terrifying moment. Yeah. Big deadline, I lied, shoving a forkful of now cold pasta into my mouth. The taste was like ash. Screen wouldn't stay dark. Name blazed across it. Mark. My stomach lurched. Ignored it. Forced myself to chew, swallow. Everything all right? Concern edged his voice. Fine, I muttered, forcing a smile that felt strained, alien. Another buzz. Ignored it again. This wasn't helping. Had to get rid of the damn phone. Think I'll go check on that email. I lied again, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. Stood up. Phone clutched like a secret weapon in my sweaty hand. Need help with the dishes? No. I got it. Already halfway to the bedroom, phone tucked against my chest. Needed to see the message, needed to know what it said, needed to— what? Burst into the bedroom, slammed the door shut behind me with more force than necessary. Fumbled with the phone, the screen blindingly bright in the dim room. Change of plans, it read. Meet me at the park in 10 minutes? Panic choked me. 10 minutes wasn't enough time to come up with a believable excuse, not after the work supply. 10 minutes to choose between my life and this. Stared at the message, the words blurring at the edges. This thrill, this forbidden thing, was starting to feel less like excitement and more like a tightrope walk over a bottomless pit. Groaning. I rolled over, expecting the warmth of Daniel beside me. Empty. Panic jolted me awake. Clock screamed 3:45 a.m. Daniel? I mumbled, my voice thick with sleep. No answer. Just the faint hum of the refrigerator downstairs. Fear, cold and sharp, pricked at me. He never left the bed. Not ever. Threw on a robe, heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Clicked on the hallway light, the sudden brightness momentarily blinding me. Padded downstairs, each creak of the floorboards echoing in the pre-dawn silence. Kitchen. Empty. Living room. Empty. Dread coiled in my gut, tightening with every silent room. Found him in his home office, hunched over his computer. A worried frown etched on his face. Daniel? My voice wavered. He spun around, startled. Relief washed over me, so intense it almost made me weak. Sarah? What are you doing up? He blinked, the worry lines on his face deepening. Couldn't sleep, I lied, the word tasting bitter in my mouth. Needed some water. He gave me a long, searching look, his gaze lingering on my face a beat too long. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Everything all right? His voice was low, hesitant. My throat tightened. How could I answer that? How could I explain the fear? The guilt bubbling like a pot about to boil over. Yeah. Just a bad dream, I mumbled, forcing a smile that felt brittle. He didn't look convinced, but he didn't press it either. Just nodded curtly and turned back to his computer screen. Guilt gnawed at me. The lie hung heavy in the air, a silent accusation. He deserved better. But the thought of losing this, of losing him, terrified me more than anything. Stood there, watching him work, the silence amplifying the storm raging inside me. This couldn't go on. The lies, the guilt, the fear. They were slowly suffocating me. But the thought of facing the consequences, of losing everything, was even more terrifying. He glanced back at me, his gaze catching mine. I looked away, unable to hold it. Going back to bed, I mumbled, my voice barely a whisper. He gave a tired nod. All right. Climbed back into bed, the sheets cold and empty beside me. Sleep felt a million miles away. All I could see was his worried face, a stark reminder of the life I was playing with fire to destroy. Bumped into Mrs. Henderson at the grocery store, my heart leaping into my throat like a startled frog. We exchanged pleasantries, the usual small-town niceties. But her gaze lingered a beat too long, her smile a touch too knowing. Panic clawed at me. Did she see me? See me where? With him? The thought sparked a wave of nausea, the weight of my secret threatening to topple me over. Lovely to see you, Sarah, Mrs. Henderson said finally, pushing her cart towards the dairy aisle. You too, I mumbled, forcing a smile that felt strained even to me. Hurried through the rest of the shopping, my mind racing. Was it just my guilty conscience making mountains out of molehills? Or had she genuinely seen something? Back home, the silence of the empty house pressed in on me. Daniel was working late again, a trend that had become worryingly frequent. Relief warred with a gnawing fear. Was he truly swamped at work, or was this his way of distancing himself? The phone buzzed on the counter. Mark. My breath hitched. Ignored it. Shoving groceries into the fridge with a force that rattled the shelves. The damn phone wouldn't stay silent. Each buzz felt like an accusation. Finally, grabbed it, heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Everything okay? The text message filled the screen. A simple question, but it felt loaded, laced with a hidden meaning only I could understand. Stared at the message, the familiar thrill replaced by a cold dread. This wasn't exciting anymore. It was a tangled mess threatening to unravel my entire life. Thumb hovered over the reply button. What to say? How to explain the growing distance between me and Daniel? The guilt gnawing at me from the inside out. A car pulled into the driveway. Daniel. Relief washed over me, so intense it almost made me weak. Shoved the phone back on the counter, the screen accusingly bright. Hey. I said brightly as he walked in, the forced cheerfulness grating even to my own ears. He looked at me, his face etched with fatigue. But there was something else in his eyes, a flicker of suspicion I hadn't seen before. The lie died in my throat, replaced by a cold certainty. The game was up. Nausea hit like a rogue wave as I unlocked the front door. The familiar scent of Daniel's cologne hung heavy in the air. A suffocating reminder of what I'd almost lost. My phone buzzed in my purse, a frantic message from Mark demanding to know where I'd been. Slammed the purse on the counter, phone buzzing like a trapped wasp. Ignored it. Rushing towards the living room. There he was, sprawled on the couch, eyes closed, face pale. Relief washed over me, cold and sudden. Daniel. I called, my voice shaky. He flinched, eyes snapping open. Sarah? You're back early. His voice was hoarse, weak. What's wrong? I rushed to his side, worry momentarily eclipsing the guilt gnawing at me. Migraine, he mumbled, wincing as he reached for his temple. Hit me out of the blue. Fetched a cold compress from the fridge, the ice pack heavy in my hand. Guilt pricked at me again. He needed me, truly needed me, and here I was, riddled with secrets. Helped him sit up, pressing the compress against his forehead. He leaned into the touch, a small sigh escaping his lips. The intimacy of the moment felt wrong, tainted by the knowledge of my betrayal. Feeling a little better? I asked, forcing a smile that felt brittle. He opened his eyes, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his gaze. Yeah, thanks. Silence settled between us, heavy and suffocating. The phone in my purse buzzed again, insistent and accusatory. I might have overdone it at work today, I blurted, panicked by the silence. Stress and all. He didn't respond, just stared at me with those unreadable eyes. The silence stretched, and under his gaze, I felt like a fraud, a stranger in my own life. Suddenly, his phone on the coffee table buzzed. He reached for it, a frown creasing his brow as he looked at the screen. My heart hammered in my chest. Work email? A friend? Or? He glanced at me, his expression unreadable. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, he unlocked the phone and placed it face down on the table. Let's get you some soup, he mumbled, pushing himself off the couch. The gesture could have been interpreted as caring, considerate. But in his current state, with that unreadable look in his eyes, it felt more like a deliberate act, a calculated move in a game I didn't understand. Heart hammering a frantic tattoo against my ribs, I scrambled to grab my phone. It lay forgotten on the kitchen counter, the screen accusingly bright with a new message. Later tonight, my place? Mark's name burned into my retinas, each letter a searing reminder of the mess I'd created. Panic choked me. Tonight? No way could I swing that. Not with the couple's massage Daniel had booked for tomorrow. The irony twisted like a knife in my gut. A massage meant to reconnect us, while I was tangled in a web of lies. Fumbled with a reply, fingers shaking. Can't. Already booked. Busy tomorrow night, too. Sent it before I could chicken out, before the guilt could morph into another lie. Stared at the message, willing it to disappear. But the damage was done. The weight of my secret felt like a physical presence in the room, suffocating me. Suddenly, the front door creaked open. Daniel. Relief washed over me, cold and sudden, momentarily pushing the guilt aside. Hey, he said, a hint of tiredness in his voice. Rough day? Yeah, you? I forced a smile, the effort leaving my face feeling strained. Long one, he sighed, shrugging off his jacket. But hey, at least it's Friday. Friday. The day I was supposed to meet Mark. The day the fragile normalcy I'd built with Daniel would shatter. A wave of nausea hit me. How could I face him at the massage tomorrow, knowing what I knew, feeling what I felt? You all right? Daniel's brow furrowed, concern flickering in his eyes. Just a headache, I lied, wincing for effect. Stressful day, remember? He nodded slowly, his gaze lingering on me a beat too long. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Think an early night might be good, I mumbled, desperate to escape the scrutiny in his eyes. He didn't argue, just squeezed my shoulder gently. Yeah, probably. Headed straight for the bedroom, the weight of his unspoken questions pressing down on me. Crawled into bed, the sheets cold and empty beside me. Sleep felt a million miles away. All I could see was Daniel's concerned face, a stark reminder of the life I was playing a dangerous game with. Tomorrow, the massage. Tomorrow, the truth. Or maybe, just maybe, another lie. The thought hung heavy in the air, a fragile hope battling against the tide of my deceit. Stiff as a board, I lay on the massage table, the gentle kneading of the masseuse's hands a stark contrast to the turmoil within me. Every touch felt amplified, a physical manifestation of the guilt gnawing at me. "You seem tense," the masseuse said softly. "Anything bothering you?" The question hung in the air, a silent accusation. How could I explain the real source of my tension? The secret burning a hole in my stomach. "Just a long week," I mumbled, forcing a calmness I didn't feel. Closed my eyes, trying to focus on the rhythmic strokes, the soothing scent of lavender oil. Tried to forget about the lie I told Daniel to get us here, to this couple's massage, a mockery of the connection we once shared. The session ended too soon, stepped off the table feeling no lighter, the guilt clinging to me like a second skin. Dinner afterward was a strained affair. Daniel, bless him, tried to make conversation. But every question felt like a probing finger, inching closer to the truth I desperately wanted to bury. Dessert arrived, a small chocolate cake, a sweet reminder of happier times. Daniel reached across the table, his hand brushing against mine. A jolt went through me, a stark contrast to the practiced ease I'd shared with Mark. "Here," he said, his voice gentle, pulling a small box from his pocket. "For you." Inside, nestled on velvet, was a delicate silver necklace. A perfect replica of one I'd admired years ago. A gift meant to rekindle the spark, to recapture the past. Tears welled up, blurring my vision. The gesture, meant for good, only highlighted the present I was destroying. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the table. A quick glance at the screen and the blood drained from my face. Mark. A single word. Tonight? Panic choked me. Tonight? No way could I swing that. Not after the massage, not after the necklace, not after the fragile hope Daniel's gesture had ignited. "Sarah, you all right?" Daniel's voice cut through my panic. "Yeah, just." I stammered, desperately searching for an excuse. "A friend just texted, need some help with something." The lie felt heavy on my tongue, the taste of betrayal metallic in my mouth. Daniel frowned, his gaze searching my face. "Is everything okay?" I held his gaze, willing him to believe me, willing myself to believe the lie. But beneath the surface, a truth crackled, threatening to erupt and shatter the fragile peace we held. Slipped out the back door like a thief, heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The cool night air felt like a slap, momentarily cutting through the haze of adrenaline and stolen excitement. He was waiting by his car, a relieved smile spreading across his face as he saw me. Guilt pricked at me, a tiny spark overshadowed by the thrill of the forbidden. We drove in comfortable silence, a familiar routine settling in. But tonight, something felt different. A shadow, a flicker of doubt I couldn't quite place. Was it the memory of Daniel's hopeful smile at dinner, the way his eyes had lingered on mine? Or was this the first taste of regret, a bitter aftertaste to the stolen pleasure? He parked in a secluded spot, a familiar lover's lane. We fumbled with each other, urgency laced with a strange tentativeness. "Thinking of going away for the weekend," he said between kisses, his voice husky. "Thought of a nice cabin up north." The suggestion hung in the air. A weekend getaway. With him. A part of me, a tiny, fragile part, yearned for a real escape. But with who? Shoved the thought away, clinging to the moment, the stolen intimacy. But the thrill felt muted, overshadowed by a growing unease. Later, driving home, the silence in the car felt suffocating. Dropped him off at his place, the goodbye an empty formality. Steeling myself, I unlocked the front door. The house greeted me with a stifling silence. Daniel was already asleep, his back turned towards me. Relief washed over me, cold and sudden. But as I slipped into bed, the silence pressed down on me, heavy and accusatory. Did he suspect something? The question hung in the air, a seed of doubt taking root in my stomach. Then, a wave of nausea hit me, so sudden and violent it brought tears to my eyes. Rushed to the bathroom, heart pounding a frantic tattoo. Minutes later, staring at the 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test, the weight of reality slammed into me. The thrill of the affair evaporated, replaced by a cold dread. This wasn't a game anymore. This was real. The positive test lay stark against the counter. A stark symbol of the life I was playing with, the life I might be throwing away. Panic clawed at me, a chilling counterpoint to the strange, unfamiliar sense of longing for the life I was recklessly abandoning. The positive pregnancy test mocked me from the bathroom counter, a constant reminder of the truth I couldn't escape. Fear gnawed at me, a cold serpent coiling tighter with each passing day. I had to tell Daniel. The longer I waited, the deeper the lies would burrow, the harder the truth would be to swallow. But the thought of confession sent a fresh wave of panic crashing over me. How could I even begin to explain the tangled mess I'd woven? Shame choked me, a thick, suffocating fog clouding my judgment. Days bled into weeks, the unspoken truth festering between us like a poisoned wound. Every casual conversation felt strained, every shared glance a potential accusation. The guilt gnawed at me, a relentless parasite feeding on my happiness. One morning, Daniel reached across the breakfast table, placing a hand on my stomach. "You seem different lately," he said, his voice laced with concern. I flinched, heart hammering against my ribs. "Different how?" My voice barely a whisper. "I don't know," he frowned, his gaze lingering on my midsection. "Maybe it's just me, but you seem fuller." Panic choked me. "Fuller?" I stammered, desperately searching for an excuse. "Oh, right, I started this new healthy diet. Mostly whole grains and stuff." The lie felt heavy on my tongue, a bitter pill I forced myself to swallow. He looked unconvinced, but thankfully, didn't press the issue. Relief washed over me, cold and fleeting. Later that evening, while flipping through old photo albums, a memory surfaced. Him, holding me close, whispering about a weekend getaway to celebrate our anniversary. My stomach lurched. The fabricated illness I'd used to cancel the trip felt like a lifetime ago, another layer of deceit piled onto the growing mountain. "Remember that trip we were supposed to take?" he asked, a wistful smile playing on his lips. The memory of my stolen rendezvous with Mark slammed into me, sharp and painful. "Yeah," I mumbled, forcing a smile. The way he looked at me, a flicker of longing in his eyes, made my throat tighten. Suddenly, the weight of my betrayal pressed down on me, suffocating. How could I have been so careless, so reckless? The answer hung heavy in the air, a silent accusation. The thrill of the affair, now a distant memory, paled in comparison to the life I was jeopardizing. Daniel deserved the truth. But the words wouldn't come. Trapped in a web of my own making, I could only stare at him, a silent plea for forgiveness choking the air around me. The doctor's sterile voice echoed in my ears, a clinical confirmation of the truth I'd been desperately avoiding. Tears welled up, blurring the vision of the sonogram flickering on the screen. A tiny heartbeat, a life growing within me. "Congratulations," the doctor said, the word landing hollowly in the silence of the room. Congratulations? More like a sentence, the weight of it settling on my already burdened shoulders. The entire drive home was a blur. My mind raced, replaying every lie, every stolen moment. Finally, the house came into view, a stark symbol of the life I'd jeopardized. Steeled myself for the inevitable conversation, the truth a bitter pill I had to swallow. Found Daniel in the living room, a book in his hand, a picture of normalcy shattered by the storm raging within me. "We need to talk," I blurted out, the words tumbling over each other in a desperate rush. He looked up, a flicker of concern crossing his face. "Everything all right?" "No," I choked back a sob. It's about everything." And then, the words came rushing out, a torrent of confession that left me raw and exposed. The affair with Mark, the stolen moments, the web of lies I'd spun. Each word felt like a shard of glass, tearing through the fragile fabric of our relationship. Daniel sat there, his expression unreadable, his silence deafening. The air grew thick with unspoken emotions, a suffocating weight pressing down on me. Then, anger. It flared in his eyes, a cold fury that mirrored the self-loathing churning in my gut. How long? He finally rasped, his voice a low growl. I told him, the details blurring with each tear that streamed down my face. To my surprise, there were no accusations, no screaming. Just a quiet hurt that resonated in the silence. He stood up, his movements slow and deliberate. I need some air, he said, his voice barely a whisper. He walked out, leaving me alone with the wreckage of my own making. The slamming of the front door echoed like a gunshot, shattering the last vestiges of hope clinging to my heart. Days turned into weeks. No calls, no texts, not even a single email. Just a deafening silence that spoke volumes more than any angry words could. The realization of what I'd lost hit me with the force of a tidal wave. The love, the trust, the life we'd built together, all gone in a flash of reckless